says, I need you to go register 1,000 people in Lubbock, they will get in their car and drive to Lubbock and say, I'll call you when we're done. No sweat. I don't know, did you stick around after Tribune Fest for a little while?
I did.
There was a line out the door. There's probably, I don't know, 3,000 people in that room. There was a line out the door to get information about how to help Battleground Texas, how to become deputized to register voters. It is a absolute top-down. Jeremy Berg knows exactly what needs to get done. He's a brilliant guy, and he's going to make it happen, and his people are excited to do what he knows will work. Our guys, and this is why I love you, if I tell you to jump, you're going to say, well, who the F are you to tell me to jump? I'll jump when I want to jump. And I mean, you guys know that with some of your Tea Party groups and your activists. Everybody wants to be the Indian. Everybody's ideas are the best. And there's, in order for any grassroots movement to truly, truly, truly long-term be effective, there's got to be Indians and there's got to be chiefs. That's just the way it is.
You kind of explain that as I think most Republicans or conservatives are independent thinkers.
Yep.
And they think for themselves and they don't
Exactly.
question what, you know.
And
but the others are followers. What you want me to do all that? It's like jumping off a cliff.
That's where groupthink pays off.
yeah, they do. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say next. The grassroots liberal organizations absolutely have that groupthink mentality on their side that we don't have, and quite frankly, I don't want, because I love the I'm that same way.
Right. They will never take my liberty.
Yeah, it's my individual liberty and my individual freedom. I am an individual. We're all individuals. I don't like to be part of the groupthink mentality. But when it comes to campaigns like this, that does not help us. And that sucks, but that's the reality of the situation. From my perspective, looking at it statewide.
This is an answer to your question of what you can do for us.
Sure.
It seems like I've been here 5 or 10 or more times hearing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When these people leave, I don't see boots on the ground doing anything. When I was in college, in the summertime, I did the Southwestern Publishing Company dictionary sales, door to door.
Okay.
We drove to Nashville. We had intensive training over the weekend, like how you knock on the door, how you wipe your feet, how you reach for the handle, how you engage people. But we went through that dozens of times, so that it just became second nature, and I could sell you a dictionary right now from 40 years ago. We need that.
Okay, so block walk training? Just
Intensive.
general? Okay.
Yeah, marketing yourself, selling. You can think it, you can believe it. Yeah.
Who in here has not done block walking before?
I haven't done it effectively.
Okay. We can set up some block walk training. We can make that happen. I will plant that bug in Whitney's ear, and we'll try to make that happen. We have a script and a kind of a how-to guide to block walk that I will make sure that all of you have.
Okay, but just getting the script and getting the words and hearing the words ain't what we need. Need the training where you're actually going through every motion until you're walking to the next door.
And I think role playing and playing the devil's advocate, and having,
Sure.
So that we can do feedback on what to expect, all the different scenarios that you might encounter, how you can.
Okay.
Like we were a debate team or something.
The what?
Like we were a debate team or something.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the practical things, like when you knock on the door and they come to it, step back.
Yeah. Okay. So.
I mean, not everybody would assume that.
Right.
Those are the practical things, I think, is what's being talked about.
The biggest thing with block walking, and I will talk to Whitney about trying to set up some block walking training.
And Shane, let me just tell you what has worked. And I think we don't need to drag Whitney in from Washington every time we do this. I think
Sure.
this is something that we do in the December 7th meeting when
Right.
the leadership gets together. is that all of the leadership needs to go through a practical training, and then,
Train others.
once Stacy has it, Stacy can train for Gregg County.
Mhm.
Jim
And for Smith.
and I can train for Smith County, because it's a really easy thing, but I
Yeah.
really didn't know until I started doing this in another county. They asked me to come in. People really are afraid to go, if you've done it a lot, that's just like public speaking.
Right.
Most people are more afraid, there are two things people are afraid of: dying and public speaking. And so if you do it all the time and you're not afraid of it, you lose the sensitivity that other people have. Because I have been at meetings and I've said, come up here and they're going, oh my God, don't ask me to come in front of the room.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing with block walking. If you've done it a lot, if you've done it for 20 years, you don't think anything of it. You just go, give me my list, I'm going down the street.
Right.
But it really does that role playing. So what I'm saying to you all is, don't be afraid to ask us to give you these tools.
We shouldn't have to individually ask. We need to train as a group, and we need to do it intensively.
Well, Bob, that's what we're saying, is that we're recognizing now what you've said, that leadership, the Come and Take It leadership needs to make sure we're all understand that we need to have this kind of training, and then we don't drag, like I say, we don't drag Shane and Whitney over here in every county to do it. Because what we need to do is have, maybe divide your county up into segments. And say, in the north part of the county, we're gonna have block walk training for this and we're gonna, and divide it up into voting precincts. If you can get precinct leaders in every voting precinct and get a team, then a team can have like a training in the evening.
Sure.
On a Sunday afternoon. You have to be, if you're going to do this kind of training, you got to be very flexible for people, because you can't say I've got everybody trained if I have just one trainer, because not everybody's going to show up.
Is there a specific email or contact where, like when we leave today, if we think of another thing, that area that we think you could maybe help us in, that we could, I know there's a lot of different probably contact emails for this, but if there's one that's specifically for suggestions for ways that you can help us, we can send.
There is not a suggestion box email account in that regard.
Or ways we can help, kind of thing. If we think of something later.
Absolutely. You will all leave with my email address. Anything that you need that I can help with, I will make sure it gets to the right people. The way that we want to structure this campaign is we want to have, because we really are running a shoestring campaign. We do not, I'm telling you, we don't have the funds or the resources to put together a intensive block walking weekend of training. We're really, really, really going to lean heavily on our already established activists in the state who have been doing block walking for 20 years. If you've got 4 people in your neighborhood who have never done it before but want to help, I need you to train them, because I can't go to Lubbock every weekend to help with it, and Whitney can't fly in from Washington. This is an absolute grassroots, bottom-up campaign. But I will make sure that you have my email address, and that I'll do as best I can to make that happen. And we can set up block walking training. We can do that. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Assuming that we're going to have this training,
Yeah, the whole thing. The video, sorry, Bob.
assuming that we're going to have this training, prior to having it, do you have a YouTube, a video, or something that shows us what we're going to learn before we go there to learn it?
No, because I haven't set it up.
Okay,
We
I
can
would
make it.
propose that we have something like
Sure.
that. So that when you do set up these activists that are ready to train people, they know what they need, the message is going to be.
Sure.
And how they go through the motions, knock on the door, reach for the handle, break eye contact, all that stuff. Okay. The other thing you can do is the next time you have a meeting, please make sure that you have wireless available. I can do so much more on what we're doing if I have a wireless network.
Sure, and like I said, I got thrust into this on Thursday, so I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here.
There's actually a video from Walk Walk from Freedom Works that I was in last summer that I was in training there.
There's what? I'm
It
sorry.
was made for FreedomWorks University. They have like a small video about how to walk. And I'm sure you could find it somehow.
Yeah, and that,
I'm not sure if
I
it was
did not know we had one.
Yeah.
We made it.
But that's awesome. Is it on FreedomWorks University? So FreedomWorks University is a kind of a new launched concept, and if you go to freedomworks.org, you can link over to FreedomWorks University, and there's a series of kind of grassroots inspired courses in there, and it's still kind of in the beta testing phases.
I will look for it.
There's a video
I will
on
find
block
it and
walking.
link it up.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
We have some training videos that we put together on our website on different scenarios that you come across on block walking.
Okay, cool.
It's on our website at wtclongview.com. You just want to take a look.
Outstanding. So there are resources available out there. Block walking is a huge thing, and it's a great effective tool, and especially for this campaign. What we need to do, and because the voter list that we're going to get you guys, you know that generally when you're walking up to the door, you know that this person probably isn't a Democrat. You know at some point recently they voted in a Republican primary or general election. So for me, because I used to do door-to-door sales in high school, and that was always intimidating because it was all the houses in a row and I have no idea who I'm going to talk to. When you already kind of know the household that you're going to approach, for me it's more comfortable. But it sounds like we need to do some block walk training, so we will make that up.
What you do, once you get into one door and talking to those people, you tell them where you're going next and if they know anything about them,
Sure.
and try to get something that they're concerned about so that you can be talking
One
about.
thing I did before I started block walking in my neighborhood is I just
Go to the-
bought a case of pocket constitutions, and I just went first and just gave those out, and I wasn't doing anything else except just knocking on a door saying, do you have a pocket constitution? And that's all I was doing, just to introduce myself to them, and then I would go back later, and they had already seen that I was there once with the pocket constitution, and then they were more likely to talk, I think, visit and talk with me.
And that's actually fantastic and a phenomenal idea.
Well, if you break this thing down, let's just talk about the differences in East Texas than if we were trying to organize in the metro area. The Dallas Tea Party, and because there are then like Park City's Tea Party. I mean, they have organized by zip code because they're so densely populated. And I'll just get anybody in here from Upshur County. Anybody? No? Okay, well, we've been in Upshur County before to try to talk to them years ago about how to organize. And I told them, I said, if I didn't have but 8,000 people to worry about, we could have had them organized last weekend. Because people try to make this like it's some grand, some scientific theory. All it is getting to know the people in your voting precinct. Take your entire county, and Keith knows this, and some of you people that have worked as precinct chairs, the whole issue of having a precinct chair is not just somebody that's got their name on a ballot and they run around with a little, tin that says I'm a precinct chair. It actually was designed for you to get to know your neighbors in your voting precinct. And if that precinct chair, for example, had a team of 5 to 10 people that helped them, after every election cycle, you look to see who was new on your vote, who was a new voter. And then you went and you contacted that new voter. And you got to know the people in your precinct. It's not like you're saying, okay, I got to reach 5,000 doors in the next 3 days. I mean, if you take it and you organize your county precinct by precinct, then the rest of this stuff becomes natural to you. Because it's about learning how situational awareness. It's about walking up to a door the first time, and if you walk up to in a yard and somebody's got a save the whales a bumper sticker on their car, you might know that you might be walking up to a house that's got a lib in it, at least one of them. Not that I hate whales.
Yeah.
But, you know, you pick up on cues, and if somebody has, for example, you go up to the door and they have scripture on a little plaque next to the door. Okay, well, if you're a believer, then, you know, you might be on common ground there with the person. And so you learn how to pick up cues like that, and you address them. If I walk up to a door and somebody's got an NRA bumper sticker on their pickup truck, I mean, the first thing I'm gonna say is, you know what, I am so glad you're an NRA supporter, because I'm a lifer myself. And then that's easy, that's an icebreaker. So with some of those practical things that we can teach you all, and I actually have, and Jim's got it, we've used it at Grassroots, the do's and don'ts of phone banking, the do's and don'ts of door knocking.
Yep.
There are just certain stupid things that you just don't do. And you learn how to be thick-skinned, and you don't care if somebody's nasty to you at the door. You just simply shake the dust off your feet
And
and go
the
the next
thing
door.
that I think this is great, I think this block walking is going to be easier than candidate-specific block walking,
Yeah.
because we're not trying to sell anybody a candidate, we're not trying to sell anybody an ideology. We're trying to make them aware. That's the biggest goal, is we're trying to spread awareness. I don't need to sell you on my candidate or my issue. I just need to tell you that this is happening. So I really don't need that much feedback from this person. I just need you to know that this is going to happen and move on. Now, we do want to do some targeted polling, and when we're going to have a leadership meeting on December 7th, and we're going to work that out. I don't need, at this point, you guys to do any targeted polling. We're going to make that happen to give you guys the best knowledge for these are the biggest issues in Texas right now. This is what our stats say. Yes, sir.
Just one thing. What I learned very quickly, I didn't like the idea when I got Joanne volunteered me for the jobs I had. I didn't like
You got
the idea of
voluntold.
going door to door. I was kind of shy about that kind of thing. I don't mind public speaking because I've done that, but going door to door, knocking on doors of people I don't know. In my neighborhood's easy. It's when I go outside, because I'm a precinct chair, so I don't know everyone in my precinct. And I learned very quickly, when you walk to the door, you go on, knock on the door, you step back so you're not right in their face. They're going to come to the door, and as soon as they do, you put your hand up, hi, I'm your neighbor. Right away, that changes the whole thing, because we are neighbors. Smith County, even if it's outside your own precinct, it's still Smith County, your neighbors. Once you say that, it's over as far as the connection. You now are connected as a neighbor. And then they say, oh, where do you live? And then you tell them where you live. And often they even know your neighborhood when you say it. In my case, I live in Emerald Bay, which is fairly well known as a community by name, and each community knows by name. So that's the key. After that, you can have a rapport with them on anything. And I usually leave a handout back, which may or may not be Grassroots the first time around, but often give them a Grassroots because that's the group we're with. But again, and then you say to them, are you registered? Well, we know they have been. Are you still registered? And they say yes. And then you say, are you going to vote? And they say yes. And they say, great, because I have you on my list. I'll check back with you later. And then what you do, or I do, especially in my own precinct, is I check to see who did not vote that said they'd vote. And I usually try and get back to them, just say, you know, sorry you didn't make it. If you had trouble, you should have called, and we would have gotten your ride there. So it's easy to develop that rapport in your own. Once you go outside the territory, like some of the people went down and tried to get hold of Joe Straub said, it's a little harder because it's not your neighborhood, but you're still Texas. I'm your Texas neighbor. You know, it's still the same thing. The neighbor thing changes the game.
And block walking is only a small, it's important. It is the bread and butter of grassroots campaigns. But for an awareness campaign like we're trying to do now, I know 6 people that aren't in this room that are registered Republicans. If I tell them, they tell 6 people, it's using your own network that you're already plugged in with and connected with is a great way to also spread awareness, because the biggest thing here is not, we are going to get to the point where we absolutely have to match them registered voter to registered voter. But right now, and this is the thing that we're struggling with, and I'm struggling with, is because I'm a big picture kind of guy. I'm on the leadership, I'm just a big picture kind of guy, and this is a baby step campaign. And right now, what we're focused on, because we are still in the early phases of this, is awareness. My block walking is going to be dramatically more effective if the person I'm talking to already knows that this is happening.
Jim, go up here and knock on this door and talk to this registered voter. Go through that thing. Okay.
Here's one thing too. y'all have to understand that, just think about yourself at your own home. If somebody comes to my door, knocks on my door, or rings my doorbell, and they haven't called first, the first thing that goes through my mind is, okay, what are they trying to sell me? And somebody's always trying to get in my pocketbook. So when they realize that you're just there as a neighbor and you're not trying to sell them
Yeah.
anything, you're just trying to make them aware. You will see that the guard drops. So I don't y'all to make this into a bigger deal than
Yeah,
it is.
exactly.
I think one of the things that's lacking here is that you all like to probably think in terms of meeting a goal. I think that once we get the voter data, we need to think in terms of precinct by precinct, the goal, the contact goal. And if you have a leadership team in every precinct, if you've got like a captain, and that captain's got 10 people, those 10 people should be responsible for contacting X number of people. So if we use that sort of pyramid kind of deal with this, then you can figure out how many new contacts, awareness contacts you need to make in order to feel successful. I think that's what's lacking here, because a lot of times people, rather than saying, oh, we got to make people aware, if they had a goal, if we had, Stacy, that we want to talk about this in terms of getting people engaged and giving people a goal of how many people they should contact, I think that will help people get a grasp of, am I getting close to being successful if we have goals. So I think that's probably what we need to do, is try to set some goals
Right.
for each area based on the number of votes we think they could turn out.
And Freedom Works is, we're not going to leave you hanging out to dry. We're going to get you material. We're going to get you stats. We're going to get you voter information. We're going to get you walk lists. And we're going to give you the ammunition. Just need you guys to load it up and use it. And like I said, we're still in the early phase of this. We haven't even had a leadership caucus meeting yet. We're doing that here in a couple of weeks. Like I said, right now we're in the very early baby steps, and I need you guys to know that this is happening. And I need you guys to tell your wives, kids, friends that this is happening. That's the biggest goal right now. Is I'm going to have an easier time in 6 weeks when I come back to do this again, if the room of people already knows what's happening. Then we can go to the next step of, okay, so this is the biggest issue in this neighborhood. This is how we should address it. First, we need to soften up the beach with some artillery knowledge and letting people know this is actually happening. This is not a farce. This is not a comical joke. This is not a liberal fantasy. This is happening. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm from Titus County. In County Fair, we have a Republican and Democrat thing at the County Fair. And they gave us out, the Republicans did, a list of what the Republicans believe in and what the Democrats believe in. And that was eye-opening. It was
Sure.
really eye-opening for somebody to hand you something like that and say, okay. Now, my biggest problem is my little precinct is 90% Hispanic. We're talking
Good.
about non-English speaking Hispanics.
That'll work.
It's hard.
A lot of us need to
We
learn
don't speak
Spanish.
Spanish, dude. I can tell you more bad things in Spanish than I can in good.
Well,
Well, I think the GOP has a card like that that's
That's
English
what
on
I'm
one
saying.
side and Spanish on the other side.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
See, that's frustrating because we want English to be the primary language, and then that's just frustrating
We
to.
have to get in where we fit in sometimes.
it absolutely is frustrating, and it is here. And this is what I've been saying, because on a national perspective, because what I do with this campaign most of the time is I am desperately trying and failing miserably to get national attention and national money to here. It's probably not going to happen, but that's what I'm working on. Is our little individual policy goals, and the Washington D.C. think tanks have all their policy goals. Focus on the family and everybody's little pet policy area. If Texas goes blue, forget it. It doesn't matter. There's no path to the White House. Without a realistic path to the White House, our pet policy projects absolutely are very near pointless. I am, at this point, willing to hold hands with Ann Coulter and Karl Rove and group hug if that's what will keep Texas red. Because if Texas goes blue, it just doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter if we can't take the White House. we are in serious trouble for our individual policy goals. So yeah, I think English being the common language, and that's a great endeavor. But that's got to take the back burner to right now. We've got to build a firewall and stop this from happening.
Can those areas be identified and then these things be printed in Spanish or, you know?
I'm sure we can make that happen. That's probably pretty cheap.
In response to his 95% Latino, we were trained and we were actually focusing on Hispanic neighborhoods. And we would talk to 5 and 6 and 7-year-old kids that knew English, and they would translate for their parents. What do we do? I mean, and we were very effective at selling at those households. How can you do that for him?
We can translate some material into Spanish. Reach out to a Spanish teacher at a local high school. I mean, there are people that speak Spanish in Texas that are conservative. My wife is one of them. We need to bring some of those people into the fold.
And if you've got a predominantly Hispanic-speaking voting precinct, then you need to get someone to help you. And if you get the materials printed in Spanish, and I think probably for this initial round, just something that spells out the liberty message, why it's important, personal liberty, individual liberty, and less government, that kind of message. We probably need to develop a one-pager, or like a door hanger push card kind of deal that's got just the basic core liberty message on it for this initial round. Because if you can, even if we did something that kind of said, what does it mean? What is the liberty movement? What is the liberty movement about? And how does that relate to conservatism? And make it a basic kind of learning tool for these people, because I think that's probably where we're failing, is that we kind of think in our mind, well, we know what that is, so everybody's got to know. Well, they don't.
And one of the things that is really infuriating is how successful Battleground Texas is in the Latino community. And it is not because the Latino community is overwhelmingly liberal. It is because the Democrats, our big thing at FreedomWorks is showing up is half the battle. And we, by and large, punted on that community and are not very effective in it. But the Hispanic Latino culture nationally, in the polls and even in state polls, they are not a liberal community. They lean conservative. It's there for the taking. We just got to show up.
Well, the left is lying about us.
Oh, of course.
Of course. We've got to find a way to get that message out.
Absolutely.
Okay, talking about blacks, talking about Hispanics, I meet a lot of black conservative people, but they're afraid to step out of their thing and say anything conservative because they're so locked into their community. My question is, how do they compare with the Hispanics? Because I've met some Hispanic conservatives wanted to come to grassroots, but they were acting sort of like the blacks.
Statistically, the blacks vote 92% Democrat, Hispanics vote 71% Democrat.
Okay, but how do they feel about stepping out of their element?
The black community is a harder community to reach because there is a groupthink mentality of if you're black and you're a conservative, then you sold out, and that is something that I don't know how effective I can be at convincing that black guy who's a conservative to step out into his community. But Katrina Pearson, who is a fantastic activist, and she is a rock star. She's running for Congress against Pete Sessions, is a black conservative activist. Refer people to her YouTube videos and her blog and her story about how she's been emboldened to step out. Lawrence Jones, a very, very good friend of mine, who was actually the guy behind the camera for the recent undercover videos, he used to work for Obama for America. He's 21 years old. He is a 6'4" black kid who, if you look at him, you think, I'm not even talking to that guy because he's definitely a Democrat. He is a fierce conservative. He's a leader.
Lawrence Jones.
Lawrence Jones is his name. Deneen. I mean, there are, Alan West, there are black conservatives out there who, if you need to embolden somebody, don't tell your story, because your story doesn't apply to them. Tell their story. Tell Katrina's story. Tell Lawrence's story. Tell Deneen's story. That's how I think we reach that community and embolden them. Because there really is, I was talking to Lawrence last night, it really is terrifying to leave kind of your camp and the perception of who you should be as an individual. It's something that we just have to accept. We don't necessarily understand that mentality. Refer them to people who do.
We have people like James White, who beat a long-entrenched old Democrat in Jasper, Texas.
Sure.
And then in redistricting was put up against a long-entrenched Republican who White beat him too. In Jasper, Texas, a black man winning anything in Jasper, Texas 20 years ago would have been unthinkable.
It's doable, and it's happening, and you're exactly right. I think we need to look at, the demographics are a huge issue, and we have to play the demographics game smart. And I am not going to be able to go into urban Dallas and register a bunch of, 19